Ever since the release of Black Ops Cold War, the Zombies mode has been praised for its new and innovative gameplay mechanics, so much so that the maps themselves have somewhat taken a backseat to everything else the game has to offer. I already made a video talking about the first map, Die Maschine, and now that we got another map review is due. So let's talk about Firebase Z. The first thing we're gonna look at is the layout of the map. Firebase Z has that classic Zombies map layout. It's divided into 4 sections that are connected via a main hub. We've had a lot of maps in Zombies that have that kind of layout. The most notorious example is one of the most popular classic zombie maps, Derice. There's also Shadows of Evil, Gorod Krovi, Shinonuma, etc. But if we were to compare Firebase Z to another map that we've seen in the past, it's almost identical to Zombies in Spaceland in Infinite Warfare Zombies. They're extremely similar in terms of the map layout, and much like Zombies in Spaceland, the layout of Firebase Z contributes to a fun and enjoyable gameplay loop. You spawn in, you go to the main hub, which is the helipad, then you go to each section of the map and turn the power on, which is going to unlock Pack-a-Punch as well. Very similar to Zombies in Spaceland. This classic initial setup process was designed to basically force the player to open up and explore every single area of the map. It's kind of an artificial way of adding more significance to different areas of the map, because once you turn the power on, you might not ever go to some of the other sections in the map. You might just stay in one place and camp or train. In Firebase Z, in each section, there's something important and there's something for you to do that it doesn't feel like certain areas of the map are just extra. Every section matters to a degree, and in the past we've had some maps where that has been a real problem. The most prominent example I can think of is probably Blood of the Dead in Black Ops 4. They took Mob the Dead and they expanded on it, but the new areas they added just feel so extra. They kind of ruined the flow of the map because of how poorly connected they are to the rest of the map, so they feel disjointed and tacked on for the sake of making the map bigger. Die Maschine had a little bit of that problem, and while Firebase Z is not perfect, at least the layout of the map is good enough to make the initial setup process and the usual gameplay loop an enjoyable experience. And part of it is because it's not exactly linear. You don't have to set up in a certain way. Die Maschine was a little linear, and that was one of my main issues with it, but Firebase Z offers enough choices that the map manages to stay refreshing and replayable for a little longer. I'll give you an example. In Die Maschine, you turn on the power, you open up Pack-a-Punch, you get your perks, you Pack-a-Punch your weapons, and hit the mystery box to get the ray gun. Or you can build the Die Wonder Weapon. But because the ray gun is so much better, chances are you're gonna go for the ray gun instead. And because it's so difficult to get the ray gun through the trials, you're better off just hitting the mystery box. So because of the way the map works, your options are kind of limited. Now let's look at Firebase Z. You spawn in, you work your way to the helipad, then you can start turning the power on from whichever section you want. So already you have more options than you did in Die Maschine. Or you can stay in the helipad, do the trials, get the Ray K, and then start turning the power on. Or you can turn the power on and build the Ray K yourself. Or you can just wait and hit the mystery box to try to get it out of the box. Now, some of you might think, well, you can do the exact same thing in Die Maschine. You can get the ray gun from the trials, or you can get it out of the box. The difference is, in Die Maschine, you can get the Die Wonder Weapon or the ray gun from the trials, or you can get them from the mystery box, or you can build the Die Wonder Weapon yourself. But all of that is true only in theory. If you want to get the Die Wonder Weapon, it's so much easier to just build it. It's stupid to try to get it out of the box. And with the ray gun, it's a huge pain in the ass to try to get it through the trials. So it's just less of a headache to get it through the mystery box. In Firebase Z, the Ray K is so much more accessible. It's not entirely a waste of time to get it one way or the other, because all the different methods are practical and doable. They're easy enough that you don't feel restricted and limited in the choices that you have to make. I've gotten the Ray K through the trials countless times. I've built the Ray K countless times. And I've gotten it through the mystery box and through the crate Easter egg enough times that it doesn't seem like it's that rare. But with the ray gun, it feels like it's so rare that you'd have better luck grabbing dog shit by its clean end. The fact that you have more options and you can freeform the way you go on about setting up makes Firebase Z a really well designed map. In Die Maschine, we have the classic dog rounds, and personally, I like dog rounds. They help keep the gameplay loop from becoming stale, and they give you a little bit of a break. Sometimes you just need a breather, and the dog rounds are just that. They're basically a little shift in the flow of gameplay, and they give you a much needed max ammo as well. In Firebase Z, we don't have a dog round. Instead, we have what we call assault rounds. They happen about every 10 rounds or so, and they provide a much needed break. But the thing is, the assault rounds are not exactly a break because they're kind of intense. Because you have to defend against a wave of zombies that are running at you full speed, it almost seems like you have to prepare for it rather than relax and take a breather. Thankfully, the game does provide you with a free support item that you can use to help defend the reactor, but the assault rounds get more intense as you move up in the rounds. So much so that on round 30, you get a full-on boss fight. You get this big-ass bastard that has an asshole for a face, and you have to put numerous amounts of bullets in him to try to take him down. And I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty epic, and it doesn't happen that often that you get annoyed and tired of it. And if you lose the assault round, the consequences of losing are so little and so insignificant that you don't feel pressured to go above and beyond to not fail. If you lose, all you have to do is do the reactors again and you'll be right back on track. It's not like the game is gonna end or you're gonna take it down or anything like that. There is one small problem with the assault rounds. Because of the combination of the different enemy types that are in this map, the gameplay past round 25 becomes kind of chaotic. You have to deal with zombies, armored zombies, mimics, Russian manglers, and the hellhounds. And because the hellhounds and the mimics are fast and they spawn in frequently, it seems like you're always trying to get away. You're always moving. If you're camping, you constantly have to look in every which way to make sure the mimics don't get you. So it's kind of fast paced, and in the later rounds when you add sprinters on top of that, it can get real hectic and it can get a little exhausting. And because of that, it feels like the dog rounds are really needed in this map. You need that kind of break in this map, much more than you do in Die Maschine. You're not gonna need a max ammo because the manglers and mimics all drop ammo when they die, and given how often they spawn in, it's really difficult to run out of ammo. So ammo is not a problem in this map. The problem is the pace is a little too fast. And the assault rounds are supposed to sort of replace the dog rounds, but because they're also kind of intense, you never get that much needed break. So the pace always remains the same, which is not exactly a good thing. But if we're gonna have to play at the same pace for an entirety of the game, then I'd prefer a faster one than a slow one. So at least we have that. Now, I briefly talked about the different enemy types in this map, but let's go into a little bit more detail. The main boss zombie in this map is the Mimic. They're fast, they have a lot of health, although not as much as some of the other enemy types in this game. They can do a lot of damage from close range, even though their swiping animation is kind of slow. And from mid-range, they can extend their arms like Elastigirl from Incredibles and pull you and basically make out with you without consent.
Why are you gay?
Who says I'm gay?
You are gay.
They can spawn in multiples at a time, and they're very much present in the map. You're always gonna see one, and you're always gonna have to deal with them. Then we have the Russian Mangler from Gorod Krovy in Black Ops 3. The interesting thing about the Manglers is that in this game, they're not at all treated the same as they were in Black Ops 3. In that game, they were more like an intermediate boss, where they would spawn in higher numbers, they could do some damage, but ultimately they were easy to take out. They had weak points, which were his helmet and his arm, and if you focused on those weak points, it didn't take much to kill them. They were introduced more as a means to divert your attention so that you get yourself killed, but by themselves they didn't present much of a threat. In Firebase Z, they're very different. They don't spawn in as often, their weak points are kind of the same, although this game is focused much more on the arm than on the helmet, and they have another weak point, which is their tank on their back, and if you shoot it off, you can deal tons of damage to them. But the main weak point is their arm. They're still very dangerous in short range. Their short range attacks are very powerful, especially when they start running at you, so that hasn't really changed, but their main attack has always been the projectile that they shoot with their arm cannon. And that's changed as well. Even though it still does decent damage to you, the difference now is the projectiles in Black Ops 3 used to track you and they were much more difficult to dodge. But in Firebase Z, the projectiles travel more or less in a straight line, and even though they're quite large, because they don't track you, they're much easier to dodge. So to sum it all up, the Russian Mangler in Firebase Z compared to the one in Gorod Krovi has more health, is more of a bullet sponge, spawns in less frequently, and its long-range attacks are much easier to dodge. Then we have the Hellhounds. They only start spawning in past round 25. They don't really hit you, they just get really close to you and explode, leaving a trail of fire, which will in turn do some damage to you the longer you stay in it. They have very little health, perhaps the weakest enemy type in this game as far as HP goes. They're very fast, they will knock down the zombies when they explode, which will mess up your train, but they're essentially a distraction. Yes, they're annoying, but they're only in the map to basically stop you from camping. And that trait is not just present in the Hellhounds, but it's present in pretty much all the other enemy types as well. And I think that's kind of Treyarch's reaction to all the easy high-round strategies that were developed involving mostly camping with a ring of fire that were kind of overused by the community in Die Maschine. So in Firebase Z, they did their best to stop you from camping, or at least make it more difficult for you to camp. So not only are Hellhounds there to contribute to that, but the Mimics and the Manglers are as well. The Mimics being so fast and spawning in high numbers is not a coincidence. It's a very deliberate decision by Treyarch to get you to keep moving and not camp. The Manglers being bulkier and having more health is also deliberate. It's there to make it more difficult for you to camp. And you know what? It worked. Camping in this map is so much harder than it is in Die Maschine. It's still doable, you can still do it, but it's just not as easy. In addition to designing all these different enemy types in a certain way to make camping more difficult, they also made large wide spaces in every section of the map to entice you and encourage you to train. So they made camping more difficult and training easier. And I would support that design choice 100% if it weren't for every single enemy type knocking down the zombies in their path and messing up your train. That's one of my biggest problems with this map. They don't want you to camp, so I'm like, okay, I'll train instead. But when I train, the Mimics, the Manglers, and the Hellhounds constantly knock down the zombies and mess up the train, which makes it a lot less enjoyable to get through the rounds by training. I think only one enemy type should be capable of doing that, not all of them. It just makes the game less fun when you constantly have to deal with something like that. And it's not like these enemy types don't spawn in every round. No, they're always there, and it's not like they're exactly easy and quick to take out, so you can't really kill them before they mess up your horde, and it becomes an inevitable, unpreventable pain in the ass. If that one problem were to be fixed, then the gameplay experience in this map would be so much more fluid, and it would be so much better. But even with that problem present, the map is still fun, and one of the reasons why that's the case is the Ray K Wonder Weapon. All of those issues that I just talked about, the Ray K helps mitigate to a degree. The Mimics are a little bit of a problem. The Ray K is an excellent solution. The map makes it hard for you to camp, the Ray K makes it easier. It's a really fun wonder weapon. I just wish the animation of switching to your grenade launcher wasn't so awkward and weird. If it were a little more user friendly, then it would be even better. But still, the map is fun, and the Ray K is a fun wonder weapon to use, and because the game gives you so many opportunities to obtain the Ray K, it feels like you always have somewhat of a solution for the problems that this map presents, which makes the process of getting the the wonder weapon worth it because the Reiki is worthy as a reward. Now let's talk about the aesthetics. The map doesn't look amazing. It's not gonna blow you away, because unfortunately with the way the storyline is structured in this game, it seems like there's gonna be a pattern of maps that take place in generic gray facilities. So much like Die Maschine, this map is kind of another gray facility. Unlike Die Maschine, the colors are more vibrant. You can see this orange sunset color that adds a lot of warmth to the atmosphere of the map. So in that sense, it's kind of the opposite of Die Maschine, where there were a lot of white and light blue, which helped portray a colder environment. Overall, Firebase Z is a decent map. In some aspects, it's not as good as Die Maschine, but in more aspects, it's better than Die Maschine. So in my opinion, Firebase Z is the superior map. While it has some issues mainly regarding the behavior of the different enemy types, the layout, the gameplay loop, and the non-linear nature of the map all contribute to turning Firebase Z into a fast-paced, action-riddled, replayable map. That is gonna do it for today's video. Let me know in the comments section down below what you think of Firebase Z. I do hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to drop a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.